أكثر مخبر شاتمتية قداها رمشة دينامايا قوة رقايا صورا بالمورخ فرمشة شرميت والهزميات. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you on behalf of our community for this special event. Allow me to introduce Mr. Hajjar to be here. He's our Master of Ceremony.
Good evening, everyone. My name is John Hajjar. I'm from Boston. I am a Middle East American advocate, especially for conservative causes. And I traveled here this evening with Mr. Tom Harp from Orlando, Florida, Sheikh Sami Khouri also from further south of Florida in Miami, and Dr. Walid Phares. But just to tell you a little bit about what we're doing, we are traveling around, just making a little barnstorming tour to try to gather our communities and really to work for Republican causes, especially this upcoming election, which is so critical for the future of this nation and for the future of our homelands and our relatives back in Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and the greater Middle East. We don't work for the Romney campaign, but we're just here advocating on behalf as just committed activists, as I'm sure everybody here is given a lot, has sacrificed a lot to be in this great country, and we're very thankful for what we have. But we'd like to see our brothers and sisters and cousins back in the homeland enjoying the same level of liberty that we enjoy sometime in the future. I'd like to thank the Assyrian Club here, the Assyrian American National Federation, Mr. William Uren, the president, Pierre Chamoun, Sargon Louis, the past president, Dr. Ishu Marcus, who I enjoyed speaking to. He was in Boston many years ago in school. Please, if I forget anyone's name, I apologize. And Martin Yumran from the Assyrian American National Coalition as well. Right now, I'd like to introduce an advocate for the persecuted church and somebody who works with the indigenous people of the Middle East, Eric Vo. So please give a nice welcome to
Good evening. Thank you everyone for being here tonight. It is a wonderful pleasure to have Dr. Walid Phares back in Chicago. 2 years ago, March 2011, we had contacted him to come here to do a conference on the issue of the persecuted church. And since that time, a number of critical action steps have taken place. We've seen a lot of change in the community. And I work closely with the leadership of the Coptic, the Assyrian, and the Maronite communities here in the Chicago area. And some of that work even extends to Washington, D.C. And we see now at this time, looking at the Middle East, what is happening. And as Americans, we must be concerned, we must take action, we must be a voice for that voiceless. So I thank all of you for being here. And I definitely recommend this book by Dr. Phares. Those of you who have not obtained that book, please get that book. It's a critical piece, very insightful, understanding the region and understanding the history. Just another final point before we move on with the program. It has also been a pleasure to work with Joseph Tamraz, who is here tonight. I've been on his radio station and do programs earlier this year with Juliana Temerazzi. And I thank you for that, Joseph, to allow me to speak on behalf of the Christian community in the Chicago area as we show our support for our brothers and sisters who have been persecuted for their faith in Christ. So thank you.
Thank you, Eric, for the great work you're doing. I'd like to now introduce a colleague, a good friend, Mr. Walid Phares. Walid and Tom is a businessman in Florida, real estate development business. He's been a tireless advocate for free, democratic, and open Lebanese country. The country of Lebanon is the country of his birth, and he's a committed Republican, a great father and husband, and my good friend, and it's an honor to introduce him.
Well, I think you guys built this building over here. And for the Middle Eastern people who come to this country, everybody comes and works so hard to build your own business. And that's why we are for the Midrami. We come to the United States, we have so many choices while we are overseas, while from the Middle East. Back then, when I was growing up in the 70s, we had choices to go to the Soviet Union or to Western Europe for higher education. We chose to come to the United States, to come over here, pay for our education, pay for everything, and get the opportunity, the liberty, the freedom we seek. Therefore, nobody could take it from us. Therefore, that's why we are all looking to vote for this gentleman over here, the next President of the United States, Mitt Romney. So I hope all of you over here, you hear the message loud and clear, and we work together to elect Mitt Romney next president. Thank you.
I know we're preaching to the converted here. It's kind of ironic. I come from Boston. You know, my hometown is maybe 15, 20 minutes from Belmont, Mass, where Mitt Romney lives. And you know, he served as our governor, did a great job in the state of Massachusetts, a state much like Illinois, which is overwhelmingly Democratic. So it's kind of ironic. My state, you know, we have, he'll lose in the general election without a doubt to the president, to President Obama, who is, you know, a native son here of Chicago. But I'd rather be in your position voting for Romney than coming from Massachusetts, where we're going to be voting overwhelmingly for unfortunately, for the incumbent president. Anyway, just to give you a few statistics to let you know why, and I think again everybody here knows why we are going to vote Republican in this election. We're people that came from the Middle East, searching for opportunities. In many cases, we were persecuted. We suffered to come to this country. But you know, when we see our country here, the United States, our adopted homeland. In my case, I'm a native-born son. You know, maybe in some cases we take it for granted because we're born here. But those of you that made the sacrifice to come here, you don't like to see 23 million people unemployed, underemployed, who have stopped looking because there's just no jobs out there. You don't come to this country. You don't put your kids in school, you don't graduate to see 25% of college graduates that can't find work, and another 25% that are underemployed, that are working in sometimes menial jobs just to earn some income to keep things going. That's 50% that are either underemployed or unemployed after spending 4 years at least in college. You don't come to this country, you don't sacrifice to see your fellow Americans, 1 in 6 of whom are living below the poverty line. You don't come to this country in hopes of seeing that the tax base is so skewed to just a few people, only 10% of the Americans paying 70% of federal taxes. Of course, we'd like to see that broaden. The Republican Party is the party of opportunity. We want to see more people lifted up, more people paying taxes. We don't believe that it comes that our freedoms come from the government, that our prosperity comes from the government. It comes from the people. You don't want to see any more years, any more administration. You don't want to see the administration currently or in the future spending money like this administration has done. every year for 4+ years, a $1 trillion+ deficit. You don't want to be lied to when you're told that Obamacare would only cost $900 billion over 10 years, and now the Congressional Budget Office is saying it'll cost 3 times that, $2.7 trillion. And lastly, you have a president who promised that he would cut the deficit in half when he entered office back in 2009. But instead, he's grown it by over 50, by 60, nearly 60%, going from 10 trillion, a little over 10 trillion to 16 trillion. So please, do whatever you can, tell your friends in the great state of Illinois, in this area, and although I know it's a tough cause here in Illinois, much as it is in Massachusetts, do your best, and I know we have very wide networks, we have friends and relatives all over this country, but do everything you can, please, to spread the word and make sure that we do everything we can to get Mitt Romney elected as the next president of the United States. I had the pleasure of knowing our featured speaker this evening for a little over 10 years. Shortly after 9/11, when everybody in this country was asking, why do they hate us? What's going on? Why would they attack us here right in New York City and kill 3,000 people? There were so many questions. I'm sure you all remember that. And people of our background understand a lot of what would cause it. The roots of fundamentalism, because a lot of us were victims of it. Well, in the desert, where there's nobody explaining to us what was going on, there was no understanding of what was causing this fundamentalism, this hatred of the United States and of the Western world. There was a voice that was heard loud and clear in the days shortly after 9/11. And this man's a scholar, he's a noted media commentator on matters in Middle Eastern affairs, and he's been a tireless warrior since 9/11 and before 9/11 in the fight for liberty, freedom, and democracy in the Middle East. This man is a senior advisor on foreign policy to Mitt Romney, co-chair of the Romney Working Group on the Middle East and North Africa. This man, Dr. Walid Phares, wrote the book that predicted the Arab Spring, the coming revolution, which was unveiled back in December of 2010, shortly before Mr. Bouazizi self-immolated in Tunisia. And an early follower of Dr. Phares' work was Mitt Romney, who endorsed his book. So without further ado, it's my great honor to introduce to you Dr. Walid Phares.
Thank you everybody for coming tonight. It's a great opportunity to be within the community. And before I begin my own remarks, I would like to invite somebody who would represent the community. So if Dr. Marcus from the community would like to come and say a few words next to me, I will be very pleased. Thank you, Dr. Marcus.
I just chose a few words because I don't know what the environment will be here. But I think if we say it in Arabic, it's fine with you?
Yes, I'll translate.
It's purposely I wanted in Arabic because most of our people understand Arabic and probably it will be on TV. And for the seniors and the others to know what's our intention, since we are representing the Christians of the Middle East and the most persecuted Christians of Iraq. Where over 60 churches were bombed during the last 3 years. Okay, let's start in Arabic. يختار الشعب الأمريكي في 6 نوفمبر الرئيس الأمريكي ال57 من سلسلة أعتقد ال57 من سلسلة رؤساء الولايات المتحدة في التاريخ الأمريكي. في واحدة من أشرس معارك الديمقراطية الأمريكية, one of the dead heat battles, that the last debate, المناظرة الأخيرة بين الرئيس أوباما والجوفرنر ماساتشوستس اللي كانت ولايتي في مراحل في العشرينات. أنا كنت أسكن في ولاية ماساتشوستس ل5 سنوات. لم يشهد التاريخ الأمريكي, American still never saw a debate like this. Over 100 million people were watching. Did you realize that? It's one of the worst in the history of America. The challenge. يواجه المواطنون المسيحيون الأمريكيون اللي هم من أصول شرق أوسطية, Christians of the Middle East, I'm doing the translation for you. Iran, Iraq, the Christians of the Middle East. Syria, Lebanon, Egypt, and other countries. It's estimated 3 to 4 million we are here in USA, Christians of the Middle East. We are here, نحن نختار رئيس لدولة ذات أقسمنا عندما يعني أصبحنا مواطنين أمريكيين على احترام الدستور when we swore that we will respect the Constitution when we became citizens of this country. The United States in the last 10 years it's facing one of the worst disasters in the history. يواجه الولايات المتحدة تواجه الولايات المتحدة في العشر سنوات الأخيرة واحدة من تعاني من أزمة اقتصادية طاحنة. One of the worst, one of the victims was me. And we are one of the most in-debt country in the whole world. الدولة الأكثر مديونية في كل دول العالم. Two major crises. لا تنبأ بالخير for the future. بسبب نهوض الإسلام المتشدد ما يسمى بالصحوة الإسلامية والإسلامي the rise of Islamic enlightenment. And the consequences of that led America to go to war against Islam. We in the Middle East نحن في الشرق الأوسط نواجه صعوبات جمة مثل ما أكثر من 60 كنيسة عندنا فجرت بالإضافة إلى آلاف الضحايا فقط في العراق. هذا في الشهر الماضي 100,000 قبطي قدموا للحصول على فيز للهجرة من مصر في شهر واحد. تصوروا مصير مستقبل الشرق الأوسط. السفير الأمريكي أنا كنت أستمع له عندما استجوب أمام الكونغرس أقر بهناك هجرات قسرية للمسيحيين وللآشوريين خاصة في مناطق الدورة. كثير سمعوا هذا في الكونغرس. أقر بذلك علنا أنه هناك هجرات قسرية للمسيحيين تحصل في العراق الآن وربما في دول أخرى. هناك انتهاكات تهجير. يعني now we are standing here, what's the solution? What America was occupying Iraq, we didn't get anything other than consequences. When Emperor Constantine declared Christianity as the original religion of the state, we had major consequences. Hundreds of thousands of Christians in the Middle East were killed, persecuted. Until now, the Church of the East and the Chaldean Church celebrates those consequences of those massacres, and we call it Sirat al-Shuhada or Sharbat Salih. Now the same thing is repeating, unfortunately. So now, what's the solution? What's the American administration going to do with our America? ماذا ستعمل والد فارس يتحدث العربي؟ ونحن نرى تساهل أمريكا مع السعودية اللي مدارسها تفقس الإرهابيين. ما هو موقف الولايات المتحدة والرئيس القادم أو الرئيس الحالي الذي أوطأ رأسه أمام شيخ السعودية اللي هو يسمى ملك السعودية؟ الجبروت الأمريكي انحنى أمام شيخ أو شيخ عشيرة السعودية. That will be the question. And we are the neutral. نحن العامل the neutral factor in the society in the Middle East. نحن المسيحيين هو العامل المعتدل في صيانة السلام. يعني السياسيين الأمريكيين يجب أن يفهموا أنه نحن وجودنا هناك ضروري للاعتدال. شكرا جزيلا.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you very much, Doctor. Asked several important questions which I will try to answer, and of course, as I understand, we're going to have room for Q&A, after I finish my remarks. Again, thank you again for inviting me. It's not my first trip to Chicago. I've been here many, many times. The first time I was actually invited by the Assyrian NGOs, Federation, and other council. Other times I've been invited by local churches, communities, and universities. So I'm very familiar with the city and I like the city. But tonight I'm not here for tourism. I'm here for a message. before and engaged in discussions, and others probably have seen me somewhat on the media. My role today is going to be a little bit different. I have not, over the past 22 years of my American life, been involved in campaigns. By the way, probably the first time when I say it tonight, I am not even registered in any political party. I'm an independent. I'm avoiding independence. This year I'm going to have big word in this election. I have always been concentrating on either national security of my adopted country and or on foreign policy and international security. That's what most of my books, if not all of my books in all languages, have been concentrating on. So why is it that tonight and in this season, this year, I am bringing a message to elect one of the candidates? If I'm not a member of a party, if I've not been part of campaigns before, what is the reason? Second, my focus is, and my expertise is not domestic economics, which basically could be 80%, 85% of this year's election and campaign. I'm not the expert on that. Many are. And the candidate I am encouraging you to look at the platform of is a great expert on economics. He is making the case, he made the case in the debate, and you know the numbers of American citizens who supported that. So my concern in this election and in this campaign, since I have been appointed by the governor as one of his many advisors on foreign policy and national security, and one of the 3 co-chairs with regard to the greater Middle East, the MENA area, is really the survival of the weakest, the most persecuted, and the most threatened of communities in the Middle East. That's number one. And tonight's audience, at least most of us here, are very concerned, as John has said, about the families that are in the Middle East, the relatives, the friends. And even if we don't have friends and relatives, about entire communities have been going through the process of suppression and oppression. And when I used to come to Chicago in the past few years, I would address this issue. But also the issue of freedom and democracy across the region. As it was introduced, yes indeed, I have published a book in 2010 that predicted or projected the so-called Arab Spring and the results of the Arab Spring, the most dramatic results of this Arab Spring. And thirdly, I am also concerned about the national security of my adopted country, America, because everything is intertwined. We had 9/11. We found our troops having to go to Afghanistan to dislodge the Taliban. It had to be done. This is not an issue of choice, Afghanistan. And we engaged in another campaign in the Levant, in the Middle East, in Iraq. And we have been engaging against Al-Qaeda and the terrorists across the region. So for the last 10 years and more, we've been spending lives, hopes, and money on a variety of engagements, wars, conflicts, counterterrorism in the Middle East. But more recent events are now driving us to understand that what happened in that greater region of the Middle East and its neighborhoods in Africa and Asia and Central Asia are affecting and will affect us. The attack in Libya that killed our ambassador and staffers is a stark reminder that, and I begin by this point, even with the elimination, killing, of Osama bin Laden, which, by the way, was a national security obligation. It's not that we had a choice. This is a matter that any president, now, in the past, and in the future, had to do. And bravo for any president, including current president, who's our challenger in this election, for having made that decision. But despite the killing of Osama bin Laden, what we see around the region, and what these communities are feeling, because we have our families, we have our relatives in the region, is that the factory that is producing Al-Qaeda, that has produced bin Laden and al-Zawahiri and al-Awlaki in Yemen and all the allies of the region, that factory is on. It is growing. So the American public, liberal democracies in Europe, Arab moderates, others, are and should be aware that those who organized the attack against the United States and against Madrid and against London, and of course blowing up cars in Baghdad, in Riyadh, in Beirut, in other places around the world, those are an international network of jihadists. So one first message that should be very important in this campaign, and it's not just a campaign, but in deciding for the next United States foreign policy and national security, is to know exactly what and who are we confronting in this confrontation, this war. And that has consequences in strategies. When Osama bin Laden was killed, messages came out of Washington, out of the administration, that Al-Qaeda is on, and I quote, on the path to decline. Is on the path to decline. While on the ground, in reality, that is not the case. Al-Qaeda is returning to Iraq. We have a lot of car bombs in Iraq, killing many. We have many Salafi jihadists in Iraq who have been slaughtering all Iraqis, Shia, Sunni who do not accept what Al-Qaeda and the Salafis are saying. And of course, Kurt, and of course, more importantly, in this case, in Chicago, within our community, Assyrians, Chaldeans, Syrians, Christians. Al-Qaeda is the enemy of everything that is different than Al-Qaeda, that does not believe in the ideology of Al-Qaeda. It is back. Al-Qaeda is back in Somalia with the Shabab. It is back, of course, in Africa, across the continent. We know that many subgroups that are linked to Al-Qaeda are operating now in the Sahara and the Sahel. You know, the Sahel of Africa from Chad to Senegal is as large as continental United States. And I'm providing these statistics and facts, I didn't even analyze them, just to see clear in the analysis of the threats that we are facing. In northern Mali, there is a new Waziristan being formed by Al-Qaeda affiliates. Libya. The attack against our diplomats is showing not just that we have been targeted. That's what the debate is talking about today. Washington is very busy with, were we aware or were we not aware? I mean, yeah, but this is not going to be the last attempt against us.
Pro Health Medical Group من Dr. Alexander Odishu, chiropractor, 3344 West Peterson, Chicago, Suite 101. لخماسية تبقيتن بتسفتلانا لافينا وجيمي تراكنبرغ أني ترنتو إنا دكتور ات physical therapy. جو Pro Health Medical Group هيري لخم بت chiropractic, physiotherapy and rehabilitation, massage و acupuncture needs. هر هذا غزة إن سنيقتن المرض خاصة ين برشا ين carpal tunnel روخة. ماسيتن آتيتن Pro Health Medical Group بتمتيخة programs بايقاتوخن قد هيري لخن وبسميلخن. هر هذا غزنيتنو involved جوخا car accident ينتلخن injury as a result of sports. Pro Health Medical Group بتهيري لخن بت chiropractic and physical therapy needs ديوخن. ودن visit الويبسايت at prohealthmed.net ين www.askdrodishu.com قد خزيتن شلو list of services بتهيري لخن بيو.
هلو شمي لدكتور ألكسندر أوديشو. نتلاقوا مرض قذالة، مرض خاصة، مرض روشانة، مرض بركاكة بسبب روخة أو بسبب ويدة خزداقة بتنابلة أو قشولة. أنا وندكتورتي مني إيو خازر قدر منتاخ.
Mid-America Furniture, 3110 West Peterson, Chicago. أحدوشت لموديل بريشت Furniture أخو تاخد خالط معها وأرخي من أمريكا ويوروب. هر هذا غزي بالطيمة مرضيانة و 0% finance. Mid-America Furniture تلو mattresses أخ Sealy Posturepedic وهر هذا غزي تلو brand name furniture أخ Berkline, Ico, Stanley, Pulaski وAshley. تيخنا شوا يومانا جشابتا بس بوقم بت Mid-America Furniture, 3110 West Peterson, Chicago. ينقريمون قشوا شوا طلا شوا إشتا خاطرة خاصي بر إشتا. Mid-America Furniture for all your furniture needs. أسيجان مايكل 8 إنت لخن مرت شاكر أنا نقيت للشتاء إيد شخصيتون البردة أينوخن وقع خامتة أينوخن سلامة أسيجان مايكل هازاري لإتقابل شو المرانة وعونت إلى رتنا سبيشالست أسيجان مايكل برقلي البانت أسيوتا جسوبة شيكاغو ويسكونسن إلى بورد سيرتيفايد وتلاربا ماتشو شيكاغو نايلز فيرنون هيلز وودستاك أسيجان مايكل إلى خلمتت من أنصن عطوراية وعون شي مقرو خلمتت ليزر سيرجري وارهادخ رتنا سيرجري جوافيزو.
كل ما يحتاجه البيت العربي تجدونه في آراكس فود بإدارته الجديدة. بضاعتنا مستوردة من ديترويت وكاليفورنيا. يوجد لدينا كافة أنواع الأجبان والجيمر العراقي، وكذلك لدينا الترشي والزيتون والمخللات والبهارات. ونقوم بتحويل كافة المبالغ من أمريكا إلى كافة الدول العربية. ولدينا فون كاردز، ولدينا أقراص CD DVD عربي وأشوري وكافة أنواع الأراجيل. ولدينا خبز عربي طازجا يوميا وكافة أنواع الكرازات والمكسرات. ولدينا كافة مستلزمات المطبخ من أواني منزلية. نحن في خدمتكم 7 أيام في الأسبوع.
ماكس كير فارماسي خذ برنوطة أبو يوسف قتل سقيات أم ساعات صرايا عاري تسنيقنا القرقستا وهزارة الدول تهارة درمانانا هانودين بريسكريبشن شي قبلي تشل تهارة انشورنس أخ ماركير بابليك ايد ماكس كير فارماسي بريسكريبشنز رابط جلدة ياوي هازر ويهم زميلي شانة عطورايا وقبلي فيزا ماستر كارد وامريكان اكسبرس هر هذا زي ممطي درمانا يلبتوا توخن خراي السنيقة الفيكيشن يا رخطة يمصيتون قرقزخ لو أن بريسكريبشنز قضية زانا تبوخون بت ماكس كير فارماسي 2810 West Devondra, Chicago. يقرأون 773-508-9999 ينودون فاكس 773-508-9990. Garden of Eden Restaurant, your favorite place for a Middle Eastern cuisine, dine in or carry out, and for any occasion. Garden of Eden offers you fine Middle Eastern cuisine from all over the Middle East. Garden of Eden will also cater to any of your events. It is also BYOB, and we are open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Garden of Eden is located at 7156 North California on the corner of California and Tui. For any occasion, visit us today at Garden of Eden, 773-274-1006. Garden of Eden Restaurant, and remember, BYOB.
We all have that one person we call, no matter what the situation or event. Who do you call when you've had a stressful day at work? When you get the news that you're having your first child, or that you landed your dream job? Now, what if you or a loved one have been injured and need advice? Who do you call? Think about it.
This is not going to be the last attempt to go not just against our national security, but those of our allies as well. And on and on and on. So my first point, ladies and gentlemen, is that Al-Qaeda and its jihadi, Salafist allies across the Arab world, across the Middle East, North Africa, is expanding. One has to admit and realize that yes, symbolic leaders such as Osama bin Laden, Al-Awlaki, others, thanks to the good efforts of our intelligence community, of our national security apparatus, our defense apparatus, they're doing a great job. Many of those leaders, the terrorist leaders, have been taken out. But we need at the same time to understand for our public not to be surprised in the future. We need to prepare the public. We need to be very honest with the public in explaining that the threat is an international threat. And as long as there are madrasas, ideological factories that are producing younger forms of bin Laden, as we saw in the streets of Benghazi or in Cairo or elsewhere, demonstrators, Salafi demonstrators holding the portrait of bin Laden and calling on us, and Americans and others, we are all bin Ladens. And the American public, readers, viewers, listeners, are asking the question, what's going on? What's going on? We eliminated the head of Al-Qaeda. How come he's still supporting it? Because there is an ideology. Bin Laden did not create Al-Qaeda. Guess what? Al-Qaeda created Bin Laden. And if they created one, they're going to create the next and the next. So this first point is extremely important. Because for the next administration, it is very important that there should be a redirection of our foreign policy. It's very important that our public in the United States understand how difficult is the issue and what is to be done in the future. Second, there's a second phenomenon in the region that has changed everything, which many among us call the Arab Spring. When I wrote the book, The Coming Revolution, I noted that the region and its peoples and civil societies have reached a point whereby their tolerance for authoritarian regimes, for dictatorships, for oppression and suppression has reached an apex. After that, they are going to explode. Middle East studies in this country, those who teach Middle East, have been for years telling us that the local dictators really represent these peoples. Their political culture is one of dictatorship, and there will be no chance for any change. Yet the change occurred. But in Washington, we are divided on understanding what caused that change, on understanding who did that change, on understanding who is winning that change, and on understanding the threats that have been produced by those who want that change. So here are the short answers. Number one, civil societies in the Middle East are formed of many forces. You have the dictators, Saddam Hussein, Mubarak, Bin Ali, others, all sorts of dictators. Then you have civil society. Then you have the two sides of the civil societies. On the one side, you have the extremists, Salafists, Khomeinists in Iran or other places, fundamentalists in a sense. On the other side of these societies, you have people who are dissidents, reformers, democracy seekers, some say settlers, women's movement, minorities movement. Every single society in the Middle East has those features. And in the center, you have silent majorities. Now, the difference between those societies and ours here is that in those societies, these majorities are silent for a reason, because of oppression and fear, and sometimes issues with education. In our societies, we have a majority that is not silent. In our societies, majorities can always speak and always change through elections, through opinion expression, so on and so forth. The Arab Spring occurred because after 9/11, there were 4 experiments that convinced many youth that they should change. Now wait a minute. The change began, but it was deviated from what it was supposed to be. And many among us in America and in Europe, for that matter, did not really understand those changes. The 4 examples, the 4 inspirers of change in the Middle East were what happened in Afghanistan, which we are now discussing in debate, in our debates, national debates. We got to Afghanistan because of the Taliban. We removed the Taliban and we opened the path for elections. Elections are not democracy. Elections are a tool to democracy. Democracy is when a democratic culture is accepted by civil society. So it has to take a long time before that forms. But while this is taking place, you need to protect this democracy. Very simple. If you don't protect the democratic experiment in Afghanistan, well, guess what? The Taliban are going to come back. You don't need a political scientist to figure this out. Some say, the administration claims that we went to Afghanistan, we removed the Taliban, and now we equipped the Afghani government with weapons, and we're leaving, and they have to assume responsibility. Yes, but last night, Vice President Biden. I mean, it sounds logical, but we went to Afghanistan to remove an enemy which is still around. And we went to Afghanistan to equip a civil society to defend itself against that enemy. And defending defending itself against the enemy is not just to equip them with M16s and even F-16s. It's to equip them with the consciousness, with the ability to mobilize against those fundamentals. And that's the missing link. Afghanistan produced a mediocre democracy. It's still mediocre, still very weak. Let's stop that and move to Iraq. Iraq, regardless of the discussion of how we entered Iraq, Iraq produced another mediocre democracy. Why do I call them mediocre? Because you have elections, but you don't have full democratic culture. You have a parliament. That's not really a parliament. It's really controlled by militias and forces and neighbors and what have you. What was important for the Arab Spring was not the mediocre results. They can compare between New Zealand and Sweden and America and Iraq and Afghanistan. People know. Bloggers know. But what was striking for many in the rest of the Arab world was the fact that they saw that instead of having the Taliban, it was possible to have other forces than the Taliban. It was possible to have women in the legislature. It was possible to have multiple parties. In Iran, for example, although most Iraqis are not happy with what's happening in Iran, but then Egyptians and Tunisians and Libyans and Syrians were saying, well, look at Iraq, it has multiple political parties. They call each other's names in the parliament, but, you know, Israelis as well, they do the same in their Knesset. These plus the Syrian revolution in Lebanon, remember 2005, when 1.5 million people took to the streets of Beirut, and in one shot compelled, thanks to emigres, of course, including in the United States, compelled the Syrian army to withdraw. This is the third lesson: Afghanistan, Iraq, Lebanon. Then the fourth came in June of 2009 in Tehran, when 1.5 to 2 million Iranian citizens, 60% of whom were under the age of 20, 30% of those under the age of 20 were females, most of whom were under, the age probably of 20 or 18 or 19. That sent a very strong image across the Middle East. These are the four pillars that inspired Tunisians, that inspired Egyptians, that inspired Libyans, that inspired Syrians and others to rise. And I'm talking about civil societies in general. I'm not even talking about minorities. Minorities in the Middle East, should they be Christian or Druze or any kind of minority, African in South Africa or in Southern Sudan or Berbers in Northern Africa, they are minorities. And every time there is a drive by civil society to get rid of dictatorship, to get rid of ultra-nationalism, to get rid of suppression, they're going to march. I mean, it is a very easy question. Minorities are the ferment, are the basics of any democratic drive, but they are weak and they are vulnerable. So this Arab Spring, if we look at the official stage of the Arab Spring, meaning Tunisia, Egypt, Libya, and Syria, how do we understand it? And I'm sure, since most of us, not all of us, but even everybody here is focusing on the development of the Greater Middle East, the Arab Spring began with the first wave. Look at Tahrir Square in Egypt. Who were the first ones to go to Tahrir Square? The youth. April 6th movement. حركة أبريل. Women. We had many, many women. We saw them, even on Al Jazeera. I'm saying even because Al Jazeera is the closest to the Islamist movement. You know, also Al Arabiya, CNN, elsewhere. So there were youth, there were women, there were secular, there were reformers, there were lawyers, there were middle class, there were labor unions. Every component of civil society was on the ground in Cairo against the dictators at that time. There were Christian Copts. In 2009, in June of 2009, when there were those 2 million Iranians walking the streets of Tehran, first time in 30 years, this was a historic moment that any Western leader, any American or other Western leader should have seized and stood by the demonstrators while the Ayatollahs and even the Pasdaran were shaken off at the end of the first week. Instead of that, the administration, the Obama administration, said, we're not going to intervene or say any word because we would be seen as meddling in Iranian politics. Tayyib, as we say in all languages. That's what we've done in Egypt. In Egypt, we did not say, Mr. Mubarak, stay. We don't want to be seen as meddling with Egyptian politics. We said, Mr. Mubarak, step down. Clear. In Tunisia, Mr. Ben Ali, get out. In Libya, Muammar Gaddafi, we're coming to get you out. So what's the difference? What's the difference between when the Iranians rose and had they been successful, there would have been a regime change in Iran. And imagine if Iran would have moved from under the Ayatollahs, the Islamic Republic, to a mediocre democracy. That's fine. It would have changed everything in the Middle East. Half of the war on terror would have ended. The support to Hezbollah would have ended. The support to the pro-Iranians in Iraq would have ended. The support to the Assad regime would have ended. And by doing so, even the Salafists and the jihadists of the other side would have been weakened. We missed the mother of all opportunities in June of 2009. Again, when the Arab Spring began, every time the outcome, in every single case, every time the outcome was that a fundamentalist regime will be in place, we meddled. Every time the result of our action could have given civil society a possibility to change towards a liberal democracy, we don't want to meddle. Now I understand. So look at Egypt, for example. I'm going to go into the nitty-gritty and not spend too much time there. In the first days of the revolt, what was the position in Washington? Remember, go to the archives. We are waiting to see how it's going to be played. What do you mean by that? When the Muslim Brotherhood started to move forward and become stronger and stronger in Tahrir Square, where the delegations started to come and be to Washington, D.C., being paraded in Washington, D.C., and being invited to the State Department, being invited to the White House and other places, then we started to pressure President Mubarak to go down. And then we considered them as partners. So there is something very wrong in the foreign policy of the United States over the past few years. And I even say, even the last 2 years of the previous administration. This is not just this administration. There's something in the bureaucracy that is going wrong. There is an issue, a policy of aligning with the fundamentalists and not supporting the minorities, and not supporting civil societies, and not reaching out to women's movement. It is very clear. In Libya, in the beginning of the revolts against Gaddafi, they were bureaucrats, former military, former settlers, who rose against Muammar Gaddafi. In Benghazi, they formed the Benghazi government. And there were also Salafist militias, funded by petrodollars from the Gulf. When the Salafist militias were established, then NATO intervened. Yes, we are with bringing down Gaddafi, there's no doubt about that. But we haven't made sure that the government will take over from Gaddafi, after Gaddafi, will first of all disarm the militias. We were on TV challenging the administration and even pushing Congress 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, telling them the Salafist militias in Libya are going to be a threat against the United States and against their own people. And look what we got now. It is a Salafi jihadi militia that was behind, or allegedly behind, the killing of our ambassador and his staffers. Syria, and then I'll go to Iraq and we'll end that. In Syria, the revolt began in March of 2011. Throughout 2011, we haven't done much, other than moving from one position, which was the State Department position, that Bashar al-Assad is a reformer. I mean, look what a reformer is doing in Syria. 30,000 people have been killed. Of all communities. The Sunni have been, Christians, anybody even from the Alawi or Druze community opposing that regime, which is backed by the Iranian regime, which is backed by Hezbollah, has been eliminated. And the price of waiting that long, because in 2011 we haven't done much. In 2012, that's election, we can't do much about it. So it's 2 years, 30,000 people have been killed. And above and beyond the fact that we did not intervene, there are changes on the ground. Communities are being affected, including in the minority communities in Syria. Now, Iraq, which is very important for us and for this audience and for this community. Many among us here work on the issue of Iraq. It is unthinkable. Historians will tell us it would be unthinkable that events like this one, that American and NATO and Western forces would be in the middle of the Middle East, in Iraq, and would get out of Iraq without making sure that those who are going to be ruling Iraq, that those who are going to be deciding the destinies of Iraq, won't be at least having a consensus on a liberal democracy, the minimum. And beyond that, how can we even imagine that we as American citizens have been funding this conflict or this push against terror or this push against the dictator in Iraq without making sure that the minorities in Iraq, and specifically the Assyrian, Chaldean, Syriac, and other Christian minorities, and Muslim minorities, and all the minorities in Iraq would be secured and guaranteed. It would be unthinkable. And I have termed it with I use a term and now it's been used by many leaders. It is an abrupt withdrawal. The issue is not the issue of withdrawal. Obviously, you need to withdraw. But it is what you do before you withdraw. Who do you equip? We didn't have an agreement before leaving Iraq that the Assyro-Chaldean, Syriacs, and others would be, first of all, recognized as one. That's the minimum. Would have an area where they can implement their cultural autonomy, would have a direct funding, would have access to resources of their country. We just subcontracted Iraq to the sitting government, and this is not a secret here. Most of the components of that government are influenced by the Iranian regime. And the rest of Iranian politics is influenced by mostly the Salafists, as we see. And the Kurds are on their own in the north and completely isolated, 4 countries. And the Assyrio-Chaldeans are being assassinated and killed and pushed out of their homes and pushed for immigration. And they are not even recognized internationally or by the United States as an officially community under threat. That's the drama in Iraq. For all these reasons, and there are many, we could engage in some of those in questions and answers, one of which is, of course, Lebanon, and the full control of the national security apparatus of Lebanon by Hezbollah, or Sudan, and the issue of Darfur and genocide of Darfur, or the issues of women and freedoms across the region. I'm talking about Muslim women and Muslim minorities across the region, in Saudi Arabia, in Yemen, and elsewhere. The Middle East today, the greater Middle East today in North Africa, is at a point whereby it's being divided. From Morocco to Gaza, under the growing control of the Muslim Brotherhood and the Salafi allies. From the southern suburb of Beirut till Iran, to the borders of Pakistan and of Afghanistan, by apparently the Iranian regime and their allies. All of you who have been convinced with my remarks will make that choice on November the 6th by electing the next president, hopefully of the United States, Mitt Romney. Thank you very much for listening.
Assyrian Athletic Club مقروءة Halloween party من زمار المخبئ جورج جندو من شيكاغو، جولي يوسف من ديترويت، توني جابرييل من كندا، وجاني بندليروز من شيكاغو بشقالة الشوبا شبتة October 27, 2012 جو Hanging Garden Banquet 8301 Belmont Avenue جو River Grove, Illinois. قيمة تكيتة إلى $3 at the door. هتغزي $25 in advance. ماسيتون قانيتون تيكت الديوخون من أشطر فود جسكوكي Zandar Import Niles, Somar Food Market de Chicago, Ishar Market, Yen, Tiger International, Timunu Moron Khadana Mahniyanta, Jo Assyrian Athletic Club Halloween Party, Min Zamana Mukhibe Jo Hanging Garden Banquet, Shepta, October 27th, 2012, Sat Show Pelje.
أمهر الأطباء تجدونه في مركز الشاهر الطبي. الدكتور أحمد الشاهر أخصائي بالأمراض الباطنية الجلدية المزمنة القلبية داء السكري ارتفاع ضغط الدم. وتجدون في مركز الشاهر الطبي أخصائية الأمراض النسائية الدكتور مأسل الشاهر التي تهتم بالحوامل وصحة المرأة وحديثي الولادة وعلاج سرطان عنق الرحم وسرطان الثدي، بالإضافة إلى الفحوصات الدورية. ويتوفر مختبر كامل للفحوصات الطبية وجهاز السونر وتخطيط القلب وجهاز فحص القلب بالصدى. نفتح 6 أيام بالأسبوع من الساعة 9 صباحا وحتى 5 مساء، ما عدا يوم السبت من الساعة 10 صباحا وحتى 2 ظهرا. ونقبل كافة أنواع التأمين ميديكير. لمزيد من المعلومات اتصال على 773-754-0088.
كل ما يحتاجه البيت العربي تجدونه في أسواق سومر.
بضاعتنا مستوردة من ديترويت وكاليفورنيا. يوجد لدينا كافة أنواع الأجبان والجيمر العراقي، وكذلك لدينا الترشي والزيتون والمخللات والبهارات. ونقوم بتحويل كافة المبالغ من أمريكا إلى كافة الدول العربية. ولدينا فون كاردز، ولدينا أقراص CD DVD عربي وأشوري وكافة أنواع الأراجيل. ولدينا خبز عربي طازجا يوميا وكافة أنواع الكرازات والمكسرات. ولدينا كافة مستلزمات المطبخ من أواني منزلية. نحن في خدمتكم 7 أيام في الأسبوع.
The Center for Advanced Medicine and Surgery is a multi-specialty medical facility. Our specialties include general practice, chiropractic care, rehabilitation, podiatry, orthopedics, weight management, advanced diagnostics with x-rays, MRI, CT scan, and PET scan. We also have a surgery center, an urgent care center open 7 days a week. We are proud to announce our newest addition, our infertility center.
Many couples struggle with the ability to conceive and have no knowledge of the reason or solution. Here at the Advanced Institute for Infertility, we help bring awareness and find the solution. We have the most experienced staff available with a state-of-the-art facility that accommodates and assures a positive result in helping make your dream a reality.
Mid-America Furniture 3110 West Peterson Chicago أحد شت لموديل بريشت فرنتشر أخو تاخد خالط ماخو أرخي من أمريكا ويوروب. هل هذا غزي بالقيمة مرضيانة و 0% finance. Mid-America Furniture تلو mattresses أخ سيلي Posturepedic وهذا غزي تلو brand name furniture أخ Berkline, Ico, Stanley, Pulaski وAshley. تيخنا الشوا يمانج شابته بس فوقهم بت Mid-America Furniture 3110 West Peterson Chicago ينقرمون قشوا شوا طلا شوا إشتا خاطرة خاصي بر إشتا. Mid-America Furniture for all your furniture needs.